Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, my name is Ted Hulsey. I'm Vice President of Marketing at eFolder and your host for today's event. Welcome to the eFolder Partner Chats. This webinar series brings together leading eFolder partners for business-oriented discussions. Today's topic is feeding prospects and getting clients, a proven marketing technique for IT service organizations. Today we are joined by Helen Moss of BIS. In just a moment, I will further introduce Helen. Before we go through the agenda, let's cover a few housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded. The recorded version of the webinar will be made available on eFolder's YouTube channel. We will also make copies of the slides available to those who attended the event. With over 124 people registered for today's session, we've put all participants in listen-only mode. You can enjoy the audio portion of today's event by either streaming it to your computer or by dialing in over the phone. Questions are strongly encouraged throughout. We've planned a special Q&A section at the end of today's discussion, but you may submit questions as we go along, and we will try to address them on the fly. First, Helen will explain why Lunch and Learns work and how she measures them. Then she will explain how she gets the right people to show up and what to do when they get there. Lastly, we'll have plenty of time for your questions during the Q&A section. Now let me introduce Helen. Helen Moss is Marketing Director of Business Information Solutions, an MSP with headquarters in Robertsdale, Alabama, and 2 other locations in Mobile and Bay Minette. Helen has over 10 years of experience in promotional management and marketing. She worked in New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Chattanooga before returning to her home state of Alabama to work for BIS. Helen is passionate about people, education, and marketing, and has volunteered as a soccer coach, a teacher in the Fairhope Educational Foundation, and for various chambers of commerce. She rides a Harley on weekends, lives with the best dog in the world and her husband, and they are expecting their first child in February. Helen, thanks for joining us, and welcome.
Thanks, Ted. Nice introduction. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and get started with why Lunch and Learns, why event marketing. A recent poll suggests that 79% of business owners rank events as important to their business. I don't know how many of you have been to conferences across the United States, across the world. It's just huge to get a room full of people that are attentive. One great thing about Lunch and Learns themselves is the blend of old plus new. You've got this old entity that is, we're still eating together, we're still, looking at each other face to face, but then we have all this great new technology that all of us know we are ready and able to provide, so we can do a lot of this new, the new presentation techniques and have show-off gadgets and show-off demos and things like that via technology, but we've got a captive audience, basically. One major thing about what I've learned about event marketing in my experience is it builds trust and value. It allows you to validate among all the numbers. If you've ever heard, sports announcers in baseball or football arenas, or maybe it's just a concert arena, they're always announcing how many people are there. It just further validates the actual information getting exchanged, that validates that event. And when you have a group of people that are there to listen to what you're saying, every one of those people in the audience is affected by the fact that there's someone else there listening to the same thing, so they feel involved. It really just brings everybody to this point of, belief, basically. As far as we have learned with Lunch and Learn ROI for our MSP, it's huge. It comes from this, we'll talk about the results and how we measure those and all that in a few minutes, but bottom line is, you think about the lifetime value of a client. If you can get them in a seat to where they can listen to you for 45 minutes to an hour and actually engage with you, that's huge. I know all of you as business owners would at some point be willing to take someone to lunch. Imagine if you could get a room full of those people and say the same thing to all of them at once and basically be able to open the floor to questions. It really puts you in a point of thought leadership. It establishes your knowledge because you're allowing them to basically pick your brain for a little while, and that's just really huge as far as credibility in the market goes. But as far as results, I can't get really specific. Every market is going to be different. Every venue is going to be different for you, but results basically come from consistency. If you are doing these things and committing to them and making sure that they are getting done on a particular time frame, I can't remember what else we have coming up, but basically you can say, well, I want to do one large event per year. You know, you might want to do one really big seminar that lasts a full day. You want to do it once a year. You might commit to doing it twice a year. As far as Lunch and Learn goes, they can be done as much as once a month or even more. I would suggest to committing to once a quarter. Just get the process, get it going, repeat it, and continue with that consistency, and that is where you're going to see results. Consistency also allows the same faces to attend over time, and that continuation of building that trust with them, we've seen sales that we never anticipated before come from that consistent effort. So, Ted?
Okay, let me advance the slides. There we go.
Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about getting the right people to come. Depending on the solution, you're going to want to qualify them. We don't have a lot of notes here for that, but I really want to stress this. Let's say you are going to talk about cloud computing and or VoIP. Certain solutions that we all provide to our clients, they really rely on a particular qualification. Not across the board, not every solution applies to every client. So you want to make sure that you fill that room with people that have that need, first of all, and you can actually service them appropriately, service them ethically, service them in a way that's going to benefit them and help them succeed. I'm sure that that's all of you, in your sales, you're looking for someone with a need and you're trying to fill that. So you don't want to get a room full of people that aren't necessarily qualified to hear the information that you're going to talk about. Something like security, for example, doesn't necessarily require any sort of qualification phase. You can just talk about security across the board because it applies to anyone, no matter how large or how small their organization. As far as inviting prospects, you need to make sure that you're doing it among all these different channels. Very important. Get something out there in front of them physically. Put something out there in the press. Use emails. There's tons of different email systems out there. MailChimp and Constant Contact and iContact, and some of your CRMs have email marketing built into them. Social channels. You hear a lot about social media marketing. You want to make sure that your events are involved in your strategic plan for social media. Huge to our success is phone calls. We have seen that if we don't make those phone calls, whether it be many or few, the highest response that we get is going to be from multiple channels and a phone call. Another huge item in the whole invitation process is that you must touch these people personally. If you don't go to them in a way that hits them where they are, some people are only going to accept an invitation if it's in person. Some people like things in writing. Some people are fine with signing up for something via Facebook. It just depends. But either way, it doesn't matter how you get them there. You must touch them personally. That's why you have to use all of these different channels. For our organization, and I would suggest for yours as well, is to make it a team effort. Make sure you get your sales team involved. Train them on the event. Let them know what's going on. Tell them, I've even turned it into a competition for my sales team before, which is really great. And then I'm sure that all of you have some sort of a call center for remote services. Get your call center a script. Have a meeting with the Chief Operations Officer or the Service Delivery Manager, and make sure that they know that over the next few weeks, hey, I want you to have your people saying these things on the phone. Same thing goes for field technicians. If you're going out there sending out technicians to touch people's businesses, it's a huge opportunity to get their attention about the event at that time. Marketing, we have an internal standardized email signature that we use. And what I do is when it's time to have an event, about 3 or 4 weeks before, and I think we'll see in this further slides the actual time frame that I do things in, is that we actually add a line to the bottom of our email saying, hey, don't forget about this and this. We have a security event coming up, and here's the link to the registration. You're not necessarily going to get people to sign up specifically via that avenue, but what that does is it's building this awareness, and over time they might be like, well, I've seen this everywhere. All of a sudden they're going to sign up. We also use our accounting department. We use the statements that we send out, whether they be via snail mail or email. So we get our entire team involved. If it means that I have to go downstairs and get on a conference call huddle with the entire organization, I will do that just to make sure that everybody knows what's going on, because if you think about how many different people are in your organization and how many different ways they're touching existing clients and prospects, when you get your entire team on board, it really sets you apart from just having your marketing department take care of it.
Hey, Helen, quick question. Well, first, maybe let's go off speakerphone. We're getting a little bit of jitter on the line, so let's try to go off speaker and see if that helps. Okay. I've got one comment to make, but I wanted to ask you a little bit about social media and how BIS is using social media channels. Can you talk a little bit more about that in greater detail?
Sure. We have established multiple social media channels, and I use them all differently. We have strategies for each one of them. As far as events go, we make sure that we're posting not only the event link for the registration itself and basically putting a little bit of an ad out there to say, hey, sign up, don't miss this. But we're also, as that event approaches, putting out information that is relevant to that topic that we're going to talk about, because what that does is it creates a whole different level of awareness and piques the interest in your market no matter where they are. So.
Have you seen, can you talk a little bit about, like, are you using Facebook or Twitter, or is there one of those that
we will do, if we have an event coming up, we have a blog. We have a Facebook page. We actually have 3 different Facebook pages because we have 3 different divisions, so it's 3 brands basically. Then we also do Twitter for each, and we do LinkedIn. We have a company profile page. We've considered doing groups, but haven't really gone down that road just yet. And then we also have a YouTube channel. And we have also added Google Plus, because it's supposedly, well, basically Google Plus is taking the place of Google Places at this point, and so it's very important to make sure that that's in your social media mix as well.
If you're a partner out there who's trying to look to start using social media as one tool to communicate with clients and prospects, where should people start? Like, what's the number one, what's the easiest way to just get started in your view?
The best way is to start with one. I get this question all the time, but the biggest thing is you are not going to be successful in any of them if you can't be successful in one of them. You've got to find out and really look and see, look at the numbers, look at where your clientele is spending their time. It might even be that you ask a couple of your clients, hey, what do you guys use? Do you guys have a Facebook page? Find out where your clientele is and start there. The one thing that we've seen is when people try to do 4 and 5 different channels and don't have a consistent effort, it's a failure. So you've got to be able to be consistent no matter what you commit to. Thus, I would say always start with one. And the number one, there is no real number one. I hate to say that, because for some industries and some MSPs, they might, rely it might be better to go with LinkedIn. For some, it might be better to go with Facebook. It kind of depends on your demographic.
Okay. All right. Well, great. That's great information to help people get started with social media, and especially using it for events. I guess I wanted to just make one comment about reaching out personally. So just share an anecdote a little bit, or something that eFolder is doing. We're doing quite a few lunch and learns, get out there and reach new partners. And one thing that I learned from Robin Robbins is whenever, half the battle, of course, is getting folks to register. The other half of the battle is once they've registered to then get them reminders, get them to make sure that their registration gets it on their calendar. People are very calendar-driven these days, and if it's not on the calendar, it maybe doesn't happen, right? So you got to get the registration, you got to get the calendar, and then what I often do is I personally reach out via email to people who are registered for the event in the days leading up to the event and ask them personally, what's the number one thing you want to get out of our upcoming lunch and seminar? And that just does a couple different things. I mean, number one, it reminds them, oh yeah, I'm registered for that. Number two, there's a human being on the other side of the table who's expecting me to be there. And number three, it's really useful as the person who's often doing the presenting to get some feedback from my audience of what people really want to hear. What's the number one thing they want to take away from the seminar? So it serves all those purposes with just that one simple form of outreach. So if you're doing that, you can either do it over the phone or you can do it via email, but either way, it adds that personal touch and dimension to the event process that really drives up people's attentiveness and their attendance.
Yeah, I was going to add to that and just say that's a really great point, because we've actually started doing that and we've seen that does help. And for me, especially in a number of them, I might speak or our CEO might speak, but what it does for me in the planning stages is to just make sure that we are giving that audience exactly what they want. We want to make sure that it's valuable for them, because the one thing that we also do at our events is we tell them, how much we appreciate them being there, to take time from running their business to put time into actually thinking about their business.
Fantastic. So should I go to the next slide?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, this is just an invitation example of one of the ones that we have used in the past. And the focus should always, always, always be on the need, the problem, the solution for that need or the problem, not on the product that you are planning on presenting. Like, we might partner with eFolder for a backup seminar, but we don't necessarily say we're going to be selling this, offering them something specifically. We're going to talk about how it benefits their business, just like you're here today listening to a webinar about event marketing. We want to make sure that it's valuable for them and where they are. So focusing on that problem and solution. Give them, ask them a question that hits a pain point. Give them a little bit of maybe a statistic or something like that to bite on, and then a few other tidbits, and get the information across as quickly and concisely as possible without sacrificing that, show them that you're knowledgeable about this particular solution and what the implication of not solving this problem could do for your business.
And I think it's also important to note just how all the logistical information on this email is up there front and center, or front and left rather, but right there, clearly obvious, location, add it to my calendar, time and date, so there's no mystery whatsoever. So that's another key part of these sorts of communications.
Yes. You can go ahead and advance the slide.
Okay.
This example is similar in that it's just saying what, it's connecting with them, as in, what are you going to learn from this webinar or this event, sorry. And I just basically put out there a list of questions. If they've ever asked themselves this question, hey, maybe you should come. Put them in a spot where it's a real clear call to action. Have you done this? Then let's talk about it at this lunch and learn. So go ahead and advance. The other thing that we have here is postcard examples. This is a plethora of different postcards that we've used in the past. You can see they're all catered to different solutions. They're catered to different, some of them are catered to different venues even. We make them very target-oriented. We find an audience that we want to speak to, and we go from there. So in the planning stages, you have to make sure that you know the demographic, how you're going to qualify them, who they are, and who you want in those seats, and then you go for just that. And don't take, don't just settle for anyone. Go ahead and advance, Ted. This right here shows you a registration program that we've switched to. We now use EventSpot with Constant Contact. And I'd like to talk about this for just a minute because when we first started doing events, we did them via our content management system on the website, and we would build our own forms. What a event management system will do for you is similar to an email marketing system. It allows you to manage everything in one place. So I would definitely say look into the best one for you. We chose Constant Contact for a number of reasons. Everything's different. There's Eventbrite out there that as long as you don't request or don't require any form of payment for your event, you can use Eventbrite for free. Another one is Cvent, and every geographic region is going to be different as far as what is the easiest and the best for you to use. So get a system, get it in place, and every time that you use these for an event, you have the opportunity to make your registration forms as detailed or as simple as you would like. So it's really great because it does have all the information right there. It allows you to add it to the attendees calendar very quickly. It also allows you to pull a list in a split second and send a personal email to them. So systems are great for keeping up with things. It allows you to duplicate and not have to find extra time to do it.
So Helen, I want to remind everybody on the line, we are accepting questions if you just use the Q&A feature there in the Go to Webinar interface, but Arun, I've got a question about the previous slide. So Arun wants to know, do you design these postcards in-house, or what kind of service providers do you use to get the postcards done?
We do, yes. We actually, there are a number of different ways that you can do that. We design them in-house. It's either myself or our lead designer for the marketing company that we have. So it just depends on who's doing it. But there are services out there that will design and print them for you. Also, I'm glad that the question came up because I meant to talk a little bit about the mailing services that are available out there. If you go to USPS, the Postal Service, you can find a couple of different resources for postcards. I know some of our other vendor partners have steered us to other vendors for postcards and things like that. They're super cheap, and if you just get a simple design together or have, even if you have a talent in-house, basically, design it in-house, ship it off, send the Excel file with it, and they will basically mail it out to your audience for you. Excellent question, though.
Okay, let's see here.
Okay, so we're talking about attendance. Attendance is definitely a numbers game. You have to go for volume. I say there's always success in volume, basically. Very important that if you're not using one, that you have some sort of a system of record keeping for your clients. You need to be making lists, building the list, refining that list. We have over 10 or 11 years acquired quite a list of information, and it's not only one thing to just have that information, but we have to go through it about every 2 years to make sure that all that information is still correct. You have people that are deceased for one reason or another. You have people that, shut down their doors, merge with other companies, things like that. You can't rely on a list that's stale. You're going to have to work really hard to keep that list updated. And as you get new people, making sure that you onboard them, what we call onboarding, onboard them correctly and make sure that you have the contact information that you need for the key players in that organization. As far as the attendance goes, in order to get, a single qualified attendee to get there, you have to think about how busy these people are. They're busy like you and I. You own businesses. You know what it's like to put out fires all day long, and it's really hard to commit to something that might be 2 weeks away. That's why you have to use all those channels that we talked about. That's why you have to, send multiple ways of invitations. You might have to talk to 10 qualified prospects in order to get one person to show up. And for us, we have seen that we can call 500 or 1,000 people. All of that effort that goes into inviting someone to one of these events, remember, is an opportunity for you to introduce what you do, anything about your company. One of the questions that we always ask is, do you know who BIS is? Do you know what we do? If they say no, we tell them. That is an opportunity to educate the market in who you are, even if they don't have a need for your service right now or don't really understand everything about you. Having the event to invite someone to is a great excuse to get in touch with your list of people. Any questions about numbers?
Yeah, a couple questions. When you do lunch and learns, Steve wants to know, do you focus on new prospects or existing clients?
It depends on the solution that we're presenting. That's a great question. Sometimes when it comes to lunch and learns, we make a goal of a certain amount of prospects, like we want to get at least 60 or 70% prospects and only have 10 to, I guess 20 to 30% existing. The clients that we do invite, one of the strategies that we use is, are they a current client that is using this particular solution? If yes, then are they happy with it? Would they be able to talk about it? Would they be someone that I would want in my audience there? That's one way we have clients. We had, for example, I believe at our backup thing, I don't know if you remember, Ted, we actually had someone there who had run off of a virtualized server that we had with the eFolder system. And he was able to stand up and give a testimony, which was huge. So we didn't not want him there. We wanted him to be there and talk about his experience, because that just created this whole other level of credibility in the room. Excuse me. The other way that we like clients to be there is we use a system where we can kind of keep track of what solutions our clients have and what solutions our clients don't have. Inside marketing, among our current clients, we would also invite those clients that we know have a need for the solution, have not committed to it yet, but this is a great way to get in front of them and kind of drop that seed and start to plant that need a little bit stronger. Prospects, always want to get a good group of prospects in there, though.
Mm-hmm.
Is there another question about numbers?
Yeah, another question from Greg about how do you build. Okay, so you've got a list, but you've got to continually add to it. What are some ways to add to your house list?
There are a number of different list builders out there. You can get through any of the databases, the larger ones. We've purchased lists in the past. Another thing that we do is we have a certain, we require our salespeople to make a certain amount of cold calls. So we keep track of all those people. If we cold call on someone that we've done a little bit of looking into and we feel like they might potentially be a prospect, we keep their information in our CRM as well. So purchasing lists, getting out there maybe a chamber list, something like that. When we do events, we gather more information. We don't necessarily do referral drives or anything like that, but we're always talking to our clients about, who are their competitors, who are their allies in their field and things like that, and we are always gathering information in a number of ways.
Okay, and I guess I would add a couple techniques that I use quite frequently to build up a list. Is there are services like Jigsaw and Hoover's, and what I like about those services is you're not always going to get, like 100% hit rate on the quality of the data. I mean, you will if you're using Jigsaw, for instance. What's great about Jigsaw is you actually get access to people's email addresses, And, sometimes you get, a 10 or 20% bounce rate. That's kind of just goes with the territory. Unfortunately, Jigsaw will give you a credit for all of those bounces. But the thing that's so beautiful about either Jigsaw or Hoover's is the ability to do targeting, because that's the, if you're focused on a particular vertical, or if you have a very tight geographic focus in your business, you don't want waste. You don't want to be inviting people to things, if they're at one or two, 3 or 4 counties over from where you typically do business, you probably don't want to invite them. So you want to be able to target on a geographic basis. You want to be able to target on a vertical basis. And that's where those services really excel, is helping you really narrow that list down so you're not generating any waste in your list creation. And then the other one I would highly recommend is using LinkedIn to find new prospects, because one thing you're able to do with LinkedIn is you're kind of able to reverse engineer the contact details of key people. So one thing I always recommend to people is, if I were in an MSP or solution provider's shoes, I would make sure that I am friends or connected to every single one of my clients on LinkedIn. Because then there's tools on LinkedIn which allow you to see, let's just say you're focused on the dental vertical, and you've got 50 clients. If you're connected to all 50 of those dentists in your local market on LinkedIn, it's very easy to see the other 750 dentists who are also connected to those 50 dentists because they're local colleagues. I mean, they're people who are in the same industry affiliations and whatnot. And it's very easy on LinkedIn to find who those other 750 dentists are, and then you can use a tool like Jigsaw to actually find out what their contact information is. So there are ways to really build your list. It requires work and effort. It requires planning, and it requires having people focused on this. But those are a couple additional ideas on how to build up your list to do lunch and learns.
Yeah, we also, just to add to that, we also are a member of certain vertical associations that allow us access to all of that information as well. And that's a very very well targeted way to do it. If you have a local medical association or something like that that meets on a monthly basis, or a local dental nonprofit even, getting involved with those verticalized groups in your area eliminates a lot of that waste. So, awesome, good stuff. So here's an example of the timeline and countdown. I set this up for roughly an 8-week calendar. You can see that at 8 weeks you would start out with things like the event. You're going to pick the topic, the date and time. You're going to choose your venue. We'll talk a little bit more about venue selection in a few minutes. Budget. You want to kind of get an idea of what the menu is going to require at that point. At this time you would come up, if you're actually going to partners, which I would suggest having those strong relationships with the partners that you have as an MSP, whether it be eFolder or whoever it is that you're using for software or hardware, anything like that. And some of them require a business plan for that event that you would have to put together that says how much is it going to cost, what do you expect of the partner, and then what do those finances look like. Some do not require that, some do. Just keeping that in mind. We, excuse me. At that time, you would be reaching out to those vendors to try to get that market development funding and try to get them committed. You not only want, to try and partner with them and get some funds to help you pay for this thing, but also you might want to reach out to them and say, hey, I'd really like for someone to be here with me. A lot of the ways that we engineer our events is that we speak as the host, but we always have that engineer there to kind of back us up as far as the factual bits and bytes of things. So you want to get that done far in advance. And then basically breaking out the calendar as you see the next 7 weeks, finding out who's going to do what. This is the time for you to delegate all these tasks, find somebody within your organization that has a talent for anything in particular. You want to put them on it, get them excited about it, and have them buy into it. About 7 weeks out, you want to make sure that you communicate what's going on in this event with your organization. Provide those physical announcements for field techs. and a script for the call center. So they can go ahead and start getting used to saying these things. They can ask all the questions at that point. We usually have a little team huddle to do it. And then also in our VoIP marketing, we add a little snippet about the event and the website that they can go to in order to register, or who to talk to in order to sign up. Let's see, then we do the email signature at that time. A website. Website is another one, and I'll just throw this in as far as the whole lead generation thing goes. Your website is a great place to generate leads. If you're not already doing it, making sure that you have those landing pages optimized for different searches in the solution stack that you provide. And on those landing pages, having a contact form that they can fill out, and you are capturing all those emails and things like that. Another thing that we always have in our on our website is an upcoming events module, and I can go in there and add events every time that we have one, and the content's always changing. Social media plan, this is where you want to plan out your different channels, how many times a week you're going to post, what are you going to post about, you know, are you going to, you know, for once a week for the next 4 weeks commit to writing a blog that specifically has something to do with the solution that you're going to present. That right there is going to generate interest as you lead up to it. LinkedIn, make sure that you have that service listed on your LinkedIn company profile if you use LinkedIn. Chamber announcements. You all, if you're members of chambers, you're going to have the chamber organization is going to be putting together a newsletter about this time before your event. So you want to make sure you get it in there for the announcement to be there for the following month. Same thing goes for any other publications that you're a member of, any other organizations that you communicate with and will post anything for you. This is when 6 weeks out you want to make sure you have that landing page and registration form. We do this ahead of time, well in advance, just so that we don't have any issues. If we find out that there is an issue, we have plenty of time to correct it before it gets too close. 5 weeks out, that 5 or 6 week mark is if you're using a mailing service, you want to make sure that your postcard is designed, sent off with the artwork and the mailing list, and get it out in the mail, because mailing services are going to extend the time that it takes to get it done. If you're doing it in-house, go ahead and start scrubbing that list. We've done TV commercials for some of our events, not all of them. About this time is when I would put that together. And if you have an ongoing spend in a media, this is when you can flip it over to just focus on the event, whether it be radio, TV, even if you have an electronic billboard or something like that. You can flip it over and say, guys, I want you to change the artwork for me now that just focuses on my event. We always make sure that we have some sort of physical banner or artwork that is for the event. We use trade show banners. We highlight the solution. And over time, we build up this inventory of great marketing pieces because we focus on this one solution at a time. Any questions about any of this so far? I feel like I'm...
Well, yeah, and I also want to remind everybody, I mean, this list is fantastic, Helen. This is like a cookbook on, you know, how all the steps you could potentially follow to pull off a perfect event. And just so everyone knows, we are recording today's session, and we will be receiving copies of the slides. So this is a great resource for everybody on the line. So.
Yeah, and you'll see that about a month out, I usually prep all the content. You start gathering all that content together, and you want to gather, you know, go ahead and generate, you know, the basic outline for your, you know, how you're going to communicate with these people to make sure that you're capturing, first of all, the registration. Before the registration has to come the interest. So how are you going to get their interest? How are you going to get them registered? Then how are you going to communicate with them as you get up to the event and following? And call down, it depends. Some events we wait till only a week before. Webinars and physical events are different. Webinar timelines for planning and registration generation is a little faster. It's a little quicker. We want to make sure that we get this information out there plenty of time ahead for people to arrange their travel schedules and whatnot.
But just so it's clear, though, so Helen, just so it's clear, though, so postcards, you want them in the mail for a lunch and learn, a physical event, 4 weeks in advance. Is that true?
Or more. What you need to do in that case is find out from your printer, how long is it going to take to print them? Then if they have to go into the mailing department, how long are they going to sit there? Where are they going to ship from? We've done some that come out of, we're located in the south, and we have some that come out of the west coast. So we have to make sure that we give ample time for all of the production, finishing, mailing department to get done with what they have to do, and then they still need to hit your client and prospects about 2 weeks out. So yeah, making sure that you're at that the 4 or 5 week mark is usually what we've found, unless you have a local mailing service.
Okay, great.
Let's see. So 3 weeks out, you want to get with your partner. You guys want to lay out the agenda. Go ahead and start fleshing out all the content that you're going to talk about. Who's going to be responsible for providing what, as far as the actual event speakers go. Media announcements, press releases, things like that, they can wait a little bit to 2 or 3 weeks. Then you've got your email. You want to finalize the menu with the venue and gather any technical appliances that you need, whether it be a projector or screen. And all of these things, you'll see that right side column, they need to be delegated to. If you're still that guy that's trying to do everything, that man or woman that is the CEO and operations officer and all that, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to get all this stuff done on your own. I know that one of the huge weights that I bear is to make sure that all these details are completed in a timely manner, and before the time of having somebody delegated it really all falls on that one person. So use these resources, because they're going to make you successful, and the people that you delegate to are going to be the ones that really make everything happen. Let's see. So I'll get back to the outline here. You want to do the event survey and the PowerPoint all together. Then you want to be sending out another email. About 1 week out, you want to make sure that you have that full list of attendee information that you want to give to them. We'll see another slide for something about that in just a moment. Door prizes. Excellent way to gather that interest. A little bit more, a little bit more of a peek, saying, we're going to give you an iPad or a Kindle. We're going to put your name in the hat for a drawing. If you actually show up and come out, it's just another thing to say that these guys are going to, this is a serious event. I need to put it on my calendar. Always have door prizes, whether you get them from your partners or you provide them yourself. So a couple of days before, you want to reach out. Ted was saying that he does it within that week before. Within the week before, everyone that has registered or has shown potential interest, you need to make sure that you're reaching out to them, asking them, to make sure they have it on their calendar, asking them that question, what do you really want to find out? And now's the time to make those last-minute changes if you feel the market is shifting on what they really want to hear about. 2 days out, 1 day out, you're getting all that information ready. Packing list. Remember to have the camera, the tripod, all this stuff. You need to archive all of your events, because it's just going to help you market the future events as well. Name tags. We always do name tags for attendees. You can also, in those name tags, something really great that we do is we'll put a mark, whether it be a red or a green, and all of our salespeople know whether, green is prospect and red is client. So we know exactly how to communicate with these people if we've never met them before. So we want to differentiate them. Day of the event, we always have multiple registration lists. One great thing now about a lot of the event management tools, like the Constant Contact and Eventbrite, is you can actually check people in via your smartphone. You just have your little app running, and you just click on their name. It checks them in. Done deal. Very, very easy. It's a really great tool. Let's see. So you want to make sure that while you're there, you've got somebody on task to actually take pictures and, instigate for questions and all those things. We're going to talk a little bit about follow-up. Follow-up is very important. You need to send a thank you. You need to send an email saying thank you, and gather leads from the surveys. So I'm sure that there's probably a lot of questions involved in all of that, but you can see it's a pretty good bit of work to get all this thing organized. You can go ahead. All right, now we're going to talk about venues a little bit. There are a number of different ways that you can approach venues. A lot of times if you go with a local restaurant, something that has some sort of a draw to it, you want to make sure that you have some secluded area that you can basically get everyone in and focus. You don't want to have distractions. You don't want to have too many servers going through in and out. Make sure that you get with that restaurant manager and you know exactly what to expect. You can see this venue is kind of large and spread out. This other slide that we're looking at here, this is an event in which we did more of a hands-on event where we would bring everybody into the same room, but then we actually split up into smaller groups to do smaller demos. You've got to keep your audience engaged in some form or fashion, whether it be a demo or you get them up and you get them moving, something that just keeps them engaged the whole time.
Yeah, and the one comment I would make, there's no other questions about venues right now, but the one comment that I would make on venues is that small can be beautiful. I mean, I think one of the things that I want to encourage everyone participating in today's webinar to think about is Helen, I invited Helen to come talk because we've done at least one BDR lunch and learn together, and it was just an awesome event. Everything came off perfectly. We had a ton of people in the audience. We had like 30 or 40 people there. It was so professionally done. She's a total pro. But what I want to encourage everyone is don't be afraid to put on small lunch and learns either, because really it's all about maximizing your effort. If you can get 5 people in a room at a smaller venue that's intimate and nice, and you can, you're still maximizing your effort. You're still going, 1 to 5. Now, ideally, for most of these things, you want to get as many people in the room as possible without diminishing the quality of the event, and you're making it informative and getting as many prospects as possible. But don't underestimate the value of smaller events, and don't think you need to like hit it out of the park and have 40 people, every time you do a lunch and learn. So that's just one kind of comment I would make. And then there is one question. I mean, Helen, Sergio wants to know, have you ever tried to quantify how many person hours it takes to put together an event?
I don't know that I have, to be honest with you. It takes a good bit of focus and attention. I don't know that I can answer that specifically, but it takes a good bit. I don't know if the question is coming from maybe a point of, could I hire someone on contract just to make this event happen? It's if you don't have I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the one comment I would make is, just to kind of try to read between the line on Sergio's questions a bit, is that, if you look at Helen's, 8-week plan, it can be a little daunting, right? I think to say, holy cow, well, there's 40 things I need to get done. The reality is most partners out there today, just to get started, if you did half of the things that are on Helen's checklist, you will be 10 times more successful than you are today in terms of putting on events. Now, BIS goes all the way to the extra mile and even putting together, TV spots to promote their events. So not everybody needs to go down that checklist and really execute 100% of those things. So it's a balancing act between what kind of resources you have on staff, and what you want to get accomplished. Now, but I think the one real important point that I want to underline, if we got to go back, is that Helen stressed a couple things. She said delegate. The key thing here is these events have to be a team effort. Even if you're a small company with 5 employees, when you're doing a lunch and learn, all 5 of your employees need to be involved in the process somehow. It can't just be one person doing all the work. And that was the other thing I was really impressed about BIS on the day of the event. that we did together is the CEO was there as a key presenter. They had their vendor involved. They had a marketing resource. Helen was there coordinating everything. And they had several salespeople there as well to help coordinate it. So it was a true team effort. So whether you're a small company or a medium-sized company or a big company, it's really about teamwork and delegation and burden sharing, because it takes a team to pull off these events in a professional manner.
Yeah, and not only does it take that, but it also, with a full team being involved, you get a totally different impact on the market itself. You get a lot more credibility. They're not seeing one person in 20 different places. They're getting a sense that you're organized, that you're committed, that you are stable. That's huge in a market, because when it comes to computer stores opening and closing, you want to be the MSP that's left there, standing at the end of it all, because you've made the commitment to building a team and you've let the world meet them, basically. So definitely delegation and teamwork is good. So content, when you go to pick that topic, you need to really examine what's going on in your organization, what's going on in your market, what's going on locally. Is there anything that you feel you've got a superstar team working great at cloud deployment right now? Make that your topic. What are you doing really, really great right now? You can even choose, what are we great at, but maybe we don't have a lot of solutions actually being serviced in our market. What share do we need? Those kinds of questions is what you need to ask. We always have team meetings, what's going to be the next one? We toss out ideas and we go down the road for each one of them and figure out whether or not it's something that we want to put out there. What you need to remember is, let's say you get even 5 or 10 people. Let's say you get 5 or 10 people and they want that service that day. You've got to make sure that you can deliver. You've got to make sure that it's something that you're comfortable with, that your staff is comfortable with. Another thing, taking it all the way back to even the beginning, if it's a new solution, before that 8-week calendar, you need to make sure you get your partner in there and train your technicians, train everybody that's going to be touching this thing technically. Make sure that everybody understands how this solution works if you're going to use a lunch and learn to roll out something new. So all those questions, you really have to figure out what's going to be the best way for me to use this lunch and learn marketing. Like produce, think seasonal, think local. Is there a particular season, maybe in the Midwest or the far west over there? For you guys, it might be that there's a fire season coming up and you want to talk about backup and disaster recovery and how hard it would be to recover from a fire. For us, we have hurricanes. For some other guys, you have tornadoes. Think about these things. Think about, if there's a local organization or someone who's just had some major breach in security, maybe you want to piggyback on that momentum and say, let's really take this thing to the marketplace and say, we've just had this huge security issue. Let's make sure that all of our clients and prospects know that we're the security experts, and we're not going to let that happen to them. And then the final point on this slide, I'm sure that you guys might have questions about the content part of it, but I'm just going to talk about surveys really quick. As you're doing a survey for the event, which I would say if you don't do anything else, make sure you at least ask them to fill out some sort of survey. You want to ask not only about the solution that you are presenting on for this event, but you also want to give them a teaser and try to find out if there's any other interest or any other pain that you can service for them. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll give them a list of 3 to 5 other topics to help me to basically get help deciding on what the next thing is going to be. So great time to do that. Any questions about how to make that decision on what to present?
So no more content questions, but I think the other important thing to highlight with surveys is the reason surveys are so important is you get further qualification feedback from the prospects in the room, which gives you that much more information on knowing how to follow up with them effectively.
Yes, and also what we do is immediately after, we basically scan all of them. That way we can not only have a record of them in-house and if the papers get lost, but also For example, like when Ted came out to our event, I made sure that he had copies of them too, because the vendor, the partner, really needs to see what you see. You need to show them how this thing has affected your market and give them the confidence to continue to do this with you, because you guys are partners. Just some topics that we've used, best practices. You want to look at your the way that you present the topic. Internet marketing, SEO for success. Should you take your business to the cloud? Ask them a question. Voice for the small business. You want to hit on something with every topic. There's some tools out there, some content writing tools that give you a list of the best, the top 10 ways to present a topic, and you can kind of fit in your solution or your service with those things. Like some of them is like the truth about, or the top 10 reasons for, or the top 7 mistakes, or etc. Go ahead, Ted. As far as the materials that we provide for our attendees, we always have some sort of a packet for them. We want to make sure that they get a copy of the slides. A lot of times we just pare down the slide presentation itself and basically give them a place to take notes. We always make sure that there's notepads and pens. And like Ted said earlier, it may not be something that you have the resources to do all of this, but over time you'll find that these things are things that you can add. Pens are always great. So promo items are a must at some point. Results and follow-through. Just like consistency, follow-through is equally as important in the follow-up. And consistency will need to run through the follow-up as well. Stay in touch. Read those surveys. We delegate our surveys out to different resources to follow up. And we basically kind of follow up with them based on what their needs are. We don't have a standard follow-up for anything, but we always make sure that we, communicate with each other. We have a sales meeting, a couple of days after, and then a week after, and all that. In between our events, sometimes we'll do webinars. A lot of times we've tried to do consistent webinars where if they couldn't attend, we want to make sure that they at least get the offer for some information. And measuring success, another thing that we do is a wrap-up. We've developed a spreadsheet. It's a formula that we basically said, what are the important things for us to know? Who registered, who attended, who expressed interest but didn't come. All those things are important to kind of keep track of the numbers. As time goes on, 30, 60 days, look back and see what opportunities and what appointments have been set off of that event, and you can start to see that ROI. And over time, when you continue to do these same things, you'll begin to see patterns. You'll begin to see that consistency is really mounting success over time.
Okay. All right. Well, that kind of concludes the the formal presentation. We've got just a few minutes for some final Q&A. Helen, let me grab a couple of questions from the question log here. So Sergio wants to know, what would be a reasonable budget per participant? $25, $50, $100? What have you seen with your experience?
As far as just the venue goes itself, we've seen 20, 25, upward, maybe 30. But then that doesn't really necessarily include any of the promo items and things like that, or the manpower that it takes to put it on. So that's just basically the check that you write for the venue and the food.
Yeah, I mean, the comment I'll make about budget is there's a lot of variability depending on what you decide to do. But one thing you may be surprised to find out is that your biggest investment is going to be in getting the butts in the seats, meaning the promotion. Between time, money, and effort, promotional materials, postcards, sourcing new lists, building your list over time, what I've found in our Lunch and Learn efforts is that you usually are spending, unless you've got an awesome house list or you've got a great joint venture partner going to market with you, you're going to spend easily half the amount of money for your total budget is going to be actually promoting the event. And then, depending on your venue, you got everything from taking people to a minor league baseball game and it's hot dogs and beer to taking people to a steakhouse and everything in between, right? So you have a lot of control there, and as long as you just write down everything you're investing in, you can really control and understand your budget. And then as you get that consistency and expertise as you go along, then you get a really good idea, almost down to a science, exactly how much everything's going to cost. And so there usually aren't many surprises. But I guess one other thing I'll just say is, go ahead,
Sorry.
Helen.
I was going to say that consistency is really what gives you more and more power over time as to where and how you market these things. And we've seen that from the beginning we did everything to now we don't have to do as much to get them there. And that's the consistency factor. We might spend the same amount for the venue and the food or whatever, but over time it's easier and easier to get people there. And just think, all the momentum and the investment that you make up front is really going to start to return upwards and upwards over time.
Right, and the other thing, one thing we've discovered is that, yes, you may have to invest a lot to get the butts in the seats, but sometimes you discover kind of a silver bullet, and right now we're doing a Lunch and Learn series where we've got a great joint venture partner, and that's not something we spend a lot of time talking about but sometimes you find another company or association who really has the absolute perfect list, and they're the perfect people you're looking for, and it can become a very cost-effective way of getting people registered for the event, which would dramatically reduce your promotional costs. And that's one thing we've experienced lately is we've got a partner who we're doing these luncheons with, and their list is exactly who we're trying to get to, and they're giving it to us for free because we're co-hosting the event. So just, another idea that as you go along, sometimes you discover something that really works really well, and working usually comes down to, okay, great results and hopefully lower cost. So any final questions from the audience for Helen? Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining today's eFolder Partner Chat, and thank you especially to Helen Moss for sharing all of this great expertise that I'm sure all of you are going to be able to take and put to use in your business. So with that, this concludes our webinar, and Helen, thank you very much again.
Thank you for having me, Ted. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Okay. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.